Today I want to talk about some books because I'm a book nerd. I read all kinds of books on my spare time, but today I specifically want to talk about Hackerreads. What are Hackerreads? Hackerreads are books that are more involved in the tech space. They talk about code or exploits or anyone in tech who would deeply appreciate some of these books. But today specifically I want to talk about the books I've read in the past 6 months, which we would call a wrap-up. So let's just dive in. I've ranked them from 5 stars to 1 star. The rating is specific to Goodreads, so if you're a fellow reader, follow me and creep on what I'm reading. The first book I want to talk about is called The Cuckoo's Egg. It was written by Cliff Stoll. I gave it a 5-star reads. I think it was fabulously written. It reads like a novel, but it's not. It's a nonfiction book about a real individual who's tracking down a hacker. He noticed some weird activity going on in his network, and with that, he pulled the thread of curiosity and found what he wasn't expecting. And it was a fantastic read. I read both physical and audiobook, and I really liked it. I definitely think it's a book that anyone can pick up, even if you're not so much in the tech space. Yeah, 5 stars. The next book I want to talk about is called The Cult of the Dead Cow. Fairly short, but it is not an easy read. I say that because it's very dense, very informative, very interesting in all that it has to say. It talks about the secret group called Cult of the Dead Cow. They were largely unknown for a long period of time, but it talks about the invention of Tor, various hacktivisms that happened in the early 90s. It was very interesting, but not an easy read. So if you're not really into hacking or that sort of culture, you might not like it. I'll read what it says on the back. They contribute to the development of Tor, the most important privacy tool on the internet, and helped build cyber weapons that advance user security without injuring anyone. Today, the group and its followers are battling electoral misinformation, making personal data safer, and the organization to keep technology a force of good instead of for surveillance and oppression. It describes how, at a time when government, corporations, and criminals hold immense power, a small band of tech iconoclasts is on our side fighting back. Very interesting. I really liked it. I did switch from audiobook to physical book, and I preferred the physical book alongside with the audiobook, but it was still really good. I gave it 4 stars. If this is kind of your thing, I would highly recommend it. By the way, the writer is obviously Joseph Min. I forgot to say that. The next book I read that was 4-star, I really liked it. It's called The Tribe of Hackers. It's written by Marcus Carey and Jennifer Jin. You can see that there. Stupid son. Anyways, this was a fun read. It's not an all-in-one-go kind of read. Mainly I say that because it's a collection of around 65 to 70 interviews from some of the most respected hackers in the community. They're asked around 15 questions, all the same questions, but it was really interesting to hear their feedback. Ranged from what advice would you give concerning security, what books do you like, what movies do you recommend, and then more serious topics like life advice, as well as how do you succeed in this space. A collection of mentors, if you will, which I really like. I tried to read around 2 or 3 interviews a day. Very interesting. I gave it 4 stars. Really liked it. The next book I read was an audiobook, not the physical copy, but it was called Sandworm, and it was a 4-star book. I really liked it. It talks about cyber war crime and the ever-growing concern involved in exploiting systems or those systems in general. It was a fairly quick read, solely audiobook. It was very informative. I actually liked the writing style, so it flowed pretty well, even in audiobook form. It got a 4-star. The next book I have is called Kingpin. It's how one hacker took over the billion-dollar cybercrime underground. It's written by Kevin Poulsen. I gave it a 3-star because I just wasn't a fan of the writing style. That's not to say it wasn't a great book. It's a great book. Very informative. It felt a bit like an autobiography, but not, which again is why I gave it a 3-star. Fairly short. I dug it. I picked it up as part of the Hacker Book Club We Are Hackers book club on Goodreads, or if you're curious about that, become a member. The last book I read was called Lean In, written by Sheryl Sandberg. I checked it out from my local library. I was curious in what she had to offer and what I could learn. Given that she was in the tech space and she worked for Facebook, I wasn't a big fan of it. I gave it a 1 star. It gave me a negative reaction. The whole time it felt like she was complaining on what females were doing, and that's not what I was hoping to gain from that book. I've read other different books where I actually learned insight, and one of those books I can quickly recall is called Women in Tech, and it's written by Tara Wheeler. Fabulous book. I think I gave it a 4 or 5 stars. I learned a lot from that book, but I didn't read that this year. But that's kind of what I was expecting in the book, or something more insightful, and I didn't. So I gave it a 1 star, which was unfortunate. Last 2 books I want to talk about are fiction books. One of them is called Warcross. It was a fun book, very interesting. It's about a female bug bounty hunter. It starts off with her exploiting a bug mid-game, and after that she's kind of exposed in who she is. She's hired as a sort of detective to figure who else is kind of exploiting the software / company itself. It was a fairly fun read. It's part of a duology, so I plan on reading the next book eventually. I gave that book a 4 stars. Very fun read. Highly recommend if you're into that kind of thing and you like fiction. The last book I want to talk about is called Interview with a Robot. This one I gave it a 4 stars. It was an audiobook strictly from Audible. It was a 3-hour listen. Fairly interesting book. Like the title says, a detective interviewing a robot. I don't want to say too much because it is only 3 hours, but it was a fun read and I gave it a 4 star. Anyways, that's my mid-year wrap-up for Hackerreads. If any of these books sound like you might read, let me know. I always like to talk to people about books because I don't know many people who actually read. Cool. See you later.